What's up, everybody? I'm Mars Girl.
I'm Josh Knight the First.
So tonight we went to see the double feature over at the Alamo Draft House. Two showings of the Ultraman Ginga S movie and the Ultraman X movie. They're back to back, no breaks in between. Really interesting. This is January 4th, and for some weird reason, San Antonio was one of two cities between San Antonio and Laredo, Texas.
Both the Texas-based cities.
To do this showing before the rest of the country, which was really weird because, I mean, it's awesome.
Very fortunate for us.
Very, very fortunate for us. But, like, San Antonio's not, like, one of the places you imagine being a launching city for a tour of movies such as this. To give you kind of an idea, there were maybe 10 people in our audience.
That's counting us.
Yeah, that's counting us. It was a very nearly empty theater, but the people that were there definitely knew their Ultraman.
Right,
so
because when
the right audience came.
While we were sitting there, we heard other people making conversation with each other, and they were using terminology that showed that they were familiar with the property, with the characters, with other Tokusatsu, so it made us feel a little better sitting there knowing, alright, we're amongst like-minded people, we get what they get. We were all here for the same thing. We're here to see Ultraman.
Yeah, exactly. Which I think is kind of funny because the banner outside totally showed the wrong Ultraman. They showed the first Ultraman, and it's the cover of the DVD
the
box
American
art,
DVD release
for the most recent DVD release of the original Ultraman.
Which is fine. If you're
he's in one of the movies.
Yeah, so that's perfectly fine. That having been said, we made sure we were prepared going into this. Over the weekend, we marathoned Ginga, Ginga S, and Ultraman X, all which are now available over on Crunchyroll. So if you haven't seen them, go check them out over there. So we had as much information as we needed going into this.
That's the thing about these movies, though. If you have not watched those particular series, Ginga through S and Ultraman X, then, like, it's not going to make much sense other than, they're going to have a science team, one of those dudes is your Ultraman for the series, and then both of them get major movie team-ups from previous Ultramans showing up within their respective movies, and so you see these big old monster fights, so that's cool. It's in that regard, I almost don't necessarily want to do super in-depth reviewing of both movies.
Right.
A little bit maybe is okay, but I want to really talk about this localization and this tour, this movie tour that it's on for the next couple weeks.
Right, of course. So it's worth noting that as far as chronology is concerned, Ginga, Ginga S, and X would be the proper order. That's the order that they aired over in Japan. Here for the localization, they showed the X movie first, and then the Ginga S movie after that. So I thought that was an interesting choice. They decided to put that up front. But I think...
And I don't necessarily think that's just us. I'm pretty sure in the press releases that was the order in which they were billing it. So whatever city you're going to see this in, I'm pretty sure they're going to show the X movie first.
I think the reason they did that is because as far as what you're watching on screen, the visuals of what you see during the Ginga S movie might be more visually satisfying and feel more like a climax than the X movie did. That having been said, I think I prefer the X movie over the two.
I prefer the X movie as an ending, a closer to Ultraman X's story.
Yeah.
Its entire series. I think it is a better movie. I think that the Ultraman Ginga S movie is better fan service for Ultraman fans. Possibly.
I can see that. Both are absolutely
both
fan
are
service.
great fan service.
Oh, yes.
Actually. In fact, man, I love in the X movie they show there's attacks happening all around the world, and in fact, one of the cities that gets attacked is Dallas, Texas.
A city we frequent quite a bit.
It's
during
a
the year.
5-hour drive north from us, and so we recognize, hey, that monster landed like right in front of the hotel where they've held A-Kon and Anime Fest all the time, and then in comes actually Ginga.
Ginga saved Dallas.
To save Dallas, Texas. And it's like, thanks, guys.
I knew I liked Ginga more for a reason, and now I have my reasoning.
I understand.
But that having been said, we'll go ahead and talk a little bit more about the localization, like you were saying. So yes, story-wise, they round out each of their individual stories. X is actually the cap on the story that you see in those 22 episodes. Ginga S's movie is kind of just a tack on there. That having been said, since we started with the X movie, and that was the series we just finished, so we're very familiar with it, pronunciation-wise, everybody was good. It was a serviceable dub.
Yeah, these were both dubbed movies, not subtitled movies. So realize, it's a live-action movie and a dub. God bless them, they tried so hard to match lip flaps. And
they did.
And that's super good in the case of animation. When you're talking about live action, you're trying to match human mouth movements in another language where their pauses are more natural in a different place from English. It's not going to sound very natural. And there's one character in particular in X.
Yes, the doctor, Yuto's mother, Tsukasa, who is there and gives very labored speech, which makes sense in spoken Japanese, but in English, she sounds like those kids that have been experimented on in Akira, where the language is so labored.
So stilted, yeah.
And she's there waiting, bit by bit, to finish a sentence.
Or sometimes it's bit by bit to finish a sentence. Like, it doesn't even make sense where you would cut that sentence.
Right, and I wonder if that was just because they were on a time constraint, or they just didn't have somebody on the localization team to kind of break up those sentences a little bit more naturally. Granted, it happens to some of the other characters, but she's probably the worst offender out of the group.
But again, God bless them, you reach that problem because, quite frankly, this is a very faithful localization.
Yes, absolutely.
There's gonna be those sub-snobs who are gonna be like, oh, I hate it just because the dub is so terrible. And you know what? It's not. I'm not praising this dub like it's the best thing since sliced bread. I'm saying they went for accuracy. They were accurate. They left alone the soundtrack. The soundtrack
is intact.
The original names of all the characters, and for the most part, like you were saying, the pronunciation's pretty alright of Japanese words and names. And characters and their abilities and special weapons and stuff, all those things retained the same names as from the series.
Really, for the most part, if you've watched X over on Crunchyroll, those subs match the dub almost word for word. I think there were just a few cases where they switched out the word shot for beam, but that's like negligible. And so if you're somebody just coming into the series, this one, I think, out of the two of them, Ginga S and X, the X movie is easier to understand.
Yeah, I would agree with that. For sure.
So as such, everything comes across very clearly. Aside from that one character, everybody sounds about in pitch. I remember when we were watching the series, we would do this thing between ourselves, where if somebody's got to go to the other room to get something, the other will dub what's going on the screen to the other person. And funny enough, the alien doctor friend of theirs, who is working with Zio to help develop their technology. When Kalen would go to the other room, I just came up with a voice off the top of my head to fill in for him. Funny enough, that voice that I chose is almost exactly what they chose for that character.
It seems pretty natural and easy. It's easy to come to that decision.
So I respected that. It was like, okay, you guys made the logical choice with that particular voice. But otherwise, nobody's voice sounded incredibly out of place. Some might argue that Ultraman X's voice sounds a little bit too old school cartoon hokey hero, but I get it. That's kind of how people were introduced to Ultraman over here with the dub originally.
Right, that's true.
So I'll let that pass. I'll let that slide.
Yeah,
Otherwise,
and in that sense, our original Ultraman dub from the 60s, while being in many places inaccurate, it was one of the most shockingly accurate things to come from Japan during the 60s. It's so weird how Ultraman has actually done pretty well as far as localization is concerned over the last few decades. But then there's the Ginga S movie, which also, same dub studio, in some cases the same voice actors.
In a lot of cases the same voice actors. Like, they were in-house very much, and you can hear the carryover. Like, the voice of Ultraman X is the same voice as the captain from Ginga S, so
from UPG, Ultra Party
Guardian, UPS. So when you just got done hearing that voice and you hear him doing another voice, it's like, I just heard you like 5 seconds ago.
As somebody else. So that one, for some weird reason, there's a robot android lady character in Ginga S.
The character Android 10, who's later in the show referred to as Mana. She's named by one of the other characters as Mana.
Now we reach this issue where I know a lot of Americans, like, say you're playing Magic the Gathering, everybody refers to this particular type of card as mana. So, and that's really common here in the United States. So, like, 90% of the time, they called her Mana in this movie.
Which is funny.
One time, one guy called her Mana.
Which would be the correct pronunciation for the Japanese.
Right. It's the pronunciation for, like, MP mana points in, like, Final Fantasy. And that's just the way the Japanese pronounce it. Mana.
Right. So it was interesting that actually got past quality control. Like, you would think they would have been keeping an eye on that. If you're going to be if you're going to have the other pronunciation, have it consistent between all of your actors.
Exactly, yeah.
And if somebody was going to pronounce it different, like, why didn't somebody catch that?
And then I don't know.
The other interesting thing about her character in specific is that while everyone else is speaking with a Native American accent, American, as we would hear.
Native North American.
North American. Mana's actress apparently is Australian, I guess?
It sounded Australian.
Because she had a very distinct accent. And I'm thinking, whoa, okay, I never thought this character would have had an accent before. There's no reason.
I mean, I suppose it's just to indicate she's different. She's from space
guess.
And a robot. But so that just tells me that we think that Australians are robots.
Maybe. I don't know.
That's just me. And my conjecture with this film, not my actual thoughts on Australian people.
Right. Now, she was the one voice in that movie in Ginga S where I thought she sounds a little out of place because she was a little bit more high-pitched than the actress in the original.
Not by that much,
to me. It was noticeable enough to kind of make me go,
so.
Every time I heard it.
But either way, she had so few lines, like, it really didn't bother me.
Admittedly, yes, but when that accent is there, you hear it.
Yeah, of course you do.
That having been said, the rest of the cast is fine. Everybody sounds like they should. Hikaru sounds like you would figure he does, a younger kid. Sho sounds aggressive and, he's ready to, get into a fight. Ultraman Zero, who shares the same voice from both movies, he sounds like the cool guy, hey, nice to see you. So that carries over the same from the Japanese. Otherwise, having gotten past that, the movie's perfectly serviceable. Admittedly, I'm more familiar with the Ultraman that showed up in the X movie because most of those series are available over on Crunchyroll, whereas the Ginga S movie...
They skewed kind of older.
Well, but then again, that came a little further, so for the Japanese fans, they'd be more familiar with those Ultramen than we are over here. Some of those series are available, but not all of them, so I'm not nearly as familiar. Some of them I'm like, I think you're Dinah, maybe? I'm not sure. And then there was a couple of pronunciation issues there. There's the Ultraman known as Ultraman Mebius.
The Mebius himself called himself Mebius?
Mebius.
Yeah, so that was...
Like, who went to the movie? Maybe us. Yeah, that's the way it came across.
Yeah.
Whereas other people were pronouncing it Mebius, and I'm like, oh, okay, well, you guys got it right, but how come he... Like, again, the quality control issue. If you're going to say it, make sure the pronunciation is the same across the board.
But for the most part, pronunciation was not a huge issue during these films. It was, again, just the staggering of sentences to match lip flaps, and otherwise, who did you say is doing these localizations?
William Winkler Productions.
William Winkler Productions. I would imagine that after this theatrical run, there will eventually be a DVD and Blu-ray
I can only hope.
We're crossing our fingers on that. Got no proof on that, but I imagine that must be coming, and if that is the case, surely there would also be a subtitled version. But the point I want to make is this. This is the best that we can hope for right now for the best possible treatment of Tokusatsu within the United States.
Right, exactly. What we're saying are basically nitpicks.
Yeah.
It didn't ruin it for us. It's just kind of like, that caught me. But I'm not going to let it take me out of the movie because I actually like what I've been watching for the last couple of days. I like Ginga, I like X.
But paying for these movie tickets, that's the best thing you can do to further Tokusatsu within the United States, and not just adaptations, but just straight up localizations. So you're improving chances for there to be more Tokusatsu in general. You're improving chances for Ultraman series, more of them to come out either online or through home video release. And hopefully, like I said, this would eventually get a subtitled release. So if you are a sub snob, I totally get it. I really do, because the dubs are they do the job, but you might prefer the subs, especially if you want to keep the same ear to what you've been listening to over on Crunchyroll. So
now, admittedly, we might have that chance, because watching these series, those are the last two, and now we just had Ultraman Orb finish over in Japan, which is now also available. I want to start watching Ultraman Orb. Maybe William Winkler Productions will make the decision to go ahead and bring the Orb series dubbed over here at some point, or this new one that they're doing on Amazon. That's the hope, because whatever they bring over, we don't normally get access to things like this all the time, and we've said it before on the show, we'll say it again here: support stateside Toku. Like she just said, it's the best chance we've got. Maybe other companies like Toei will take notice of this and think, you know what, maybe there is something to this.
Please, Toei, because Tsubaraya's got their game on right now.
Yeah, we just gave about $35 to Tsubaraya just for this, because of the price of the tickets.
For 2 tickets, yeah.
And we were happy to do it, because, you know, these are properties that we like, that we enjoy, and other people there, granted there weren't a lot, also were sharing this love.
Of course, think of the city we're in. San Antonio's not a huge Tokusatsu hub. It's really not.
It's really not.
We exist, but not in very big numbers. I imagine if you're going to be anywhere near any bigger city hubs than San Antonio, because San Antonio's a decent-sized city, but we're not one of the biggest big cities.
Right.
If you're in any bigger city, surely once it hits LA, it's going to do well in LA. I think there's got to be showings in Austin, and I want to say Houston. Not sure. Those bigger cities will have far better reception.
So, aside from those notes that we made about the shows, definitely we highly recommend go out and check these out. Get your friends together. If they haven't already watched it, get a viewing party. Get some Ultraman X or Ultraman Ginga S under your belt and go see these movies.
Please do, yeah. So luckily we're some of the first to see this, because it's going to be hitting throughout the country the next couple of weeks. So if you've already heard our reception of it, I hope that encourages you to go and see it in your own city right now while you still have the chance, because we're on this fresh right now. Please don't miss it.
Yes.
It's a good opportunity for Ultraman and Tokusatsu as a whole here in the United States.
And for what it's worth, William Winkler Productions, thank you guys for doing this. I never thought we would get a chance to see some legit Toku on the big screen, and you've done it, so thank you. Do it again.
You keep doing
please.
it. Yes, please.
Please.
Appreciate it very much. Yes, that's about it.
That about wraps it.
We've got to go to MagFest.
Yes.
Thanks, everybody. Have a good one.
All right. See you guys later.